My name is Tinaishe Maramba. I am a Master of Global Affairs student specializing in international peace studies in the Kyoto School of Global Affairs. And I'm originally from Zimbabwe. And I've been at Notre Dame for a year and 8 months now. This is my second and final semester. I'm specifically in the International Peace Studies concentration. That has been my main focus. So the Peace Studies program is quite different from the rest of the Master of Global Affairs. It has been always there at the Kyoto School of Global Affairs. It used to be a Master of and Master of Arts, and then it was integrated into the MJ program. So we're probably the fourth cohort since that major. And the past 6 months, actually, I had been on the internship. That's one of the unique things about it, is that there's a 6-month internship component. So I was doing that, and I was based in New York working at the United Nations. And then also when I began my degree, I started working with Pulte Institute, specifically under the Global Internet Freedoms Project as a research assistant. And I was working with Jenna Wozniak, who was one of the program managers there in the Innovation and Practice Division. And I also worked with Augustus Eminogu from Nigeria, who was also I think a monitoring, evaluation, and learning specialist within the Pulte Institute. And I'm sure I think both of them have both left. They're no longer with the Pulte Institute, but it was really an incredible experience working with them. So I started working on the Global Internet Freedoms in March last year. So at the time that we started, the project was really just shaping up. It was a project which Notre Dame was working together with Internews Agency, which is a nonprofit organization based in DC, to basically document stories on internet freedoms around the world. So we had a focus on 6 regions, if I'm not mistaken, 6 regions. And my particular region was the African region. And I was also focusing on some parts of the Middle East and some parts of Eastern Europe. My specific countries in Africa, I focused on West Africa, and I covered the DRC, Nigeria. And then in East Africa, I covered Tanzania. I also covered Rwanda, and I covered Kenya, and then I also covered Southern Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Lesotho, and I also covered Botswana. Yeah, so those were the countries that I was working on. And so in the first stages of the program, we were just documenting the kind of challenges related to internet freedoms that these countries were facing, particularly civil society, because Internews works with different civil society organizations in these regions to help them promote internet freedoms. So that's access to media, access to the internet, any activities to do with freedom of expression. And so we were just tracking in the first segment of the project what that meant in terms of what literature was saying about what that looked like. So we documented a lot of abuses that were happening in these regions, in these countries. Governments like Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia, there was a track record of infringements of digital rights for journalists, for civil society organizations that work in that space, in the media space. And for example, in countries like Uganda, it also even attacked minorities. For example, LGBT communities, they were being targeted by the government using digital tools. So we documented all of those cases from these countries and made sort of like a template, a file that had a database that had those findings, which we then transmitted to Internews and eventually to the USAID. And then in the next stage of the project, there was an interest as to just finding out what were some of the factors, the underlying factors that were, resulting in these challenges, the challenges that we noted, the trends that we noted. So we embarked on a profiling project where we were just profiling the countries that we were focusing on in the Global Internet Freedoms Project, and basically trying to point out some of the underlying issues that might be the main causes of the infringements to the digital rights and internet freedoms that we saw. So we'd look at the democratic system of the country, would look at the media space, what it looks like, would look at the civil society, what role do they play. And I prepared, I think, 23 country profiles under the project, focusing on those countries in Africa, the Middle East, as well as Eastern Europe. And then in the next stage of the project, in the third phase, we were now focusing on recommendations. So we were identifying, still focusing on we did a constant monitoring that was just rolling of like every quarter of like what kind of developments we had, what had changed, if anything. And then in the third phase, we were really now trying to focus on recommendations. So just trying to like conduct a deeper analysis of the issues that were being faced in those countries, and then trying to think of solutions that could, or any sort of like initiatives that could be rolled out in those communities as it relates to the civil society, or some of them could be recommendations targeting the governments, etc. So that's basically what the project looked like. So I think like coming to Kiosk School was my main motivation was seeing a global affairs program that had a focus on that gave you the opportunity to choose the kind of like focus you could have. So I wanted to study global studies. I wanted to be a global affairs practitioner, but I was mostly interested in peace studies because I wanted to understand the root causes of some of the challenges that we face. And my belief in general is that, you know, peace is usually like, without peace, you cannot achieve development, you cannot achieve even humanitarian interventions. So I thought it was very critical to understand that. And the unique thing about the peace studies program here is that it is more focused on peace building, which relates to the long-term process of addressing the root causes of conflict, and that also entails development, that also entails humanitarian interventions. And another unique thing was that there are institutes here like the Pulte Institute, which are actually directly involved in development work around the world. And so when I got here, that's the first thing that that really impressed me, because I was learning about this online. But once I got here, I actually saw that there were opportunities for students to work in these institutes alongside with professors and full-time practitioners. So like the people I was working with, Jenna and Augustus, they were like full-time professionals, but they were also professors in those projects who were helping from time to time with technical support, or like recommendations, or like program design. And so I thought, where else in the world would you get such a great opportunity to just see academia and practice literally like hand in glove working together? And so that really attracted me to the Pulte Institute. The fact that it's really a development organization, but which is also based in this academic setting, which allows it to be constantly in touch with what research is saying, what different innovations that are coming up through research, and at the same time being in the field, also learning from what actually works. Does the research that we are conducting actually work? We can just apply what we're designing in the labs on the ground and see if it works. And there was also a great opportunity to talk to people within the field. That's also another good thing that attracted me to Pulte Institute. The fact that it's very much grounded on field work. They prioritize that, and they have a great connection and network of field workers around the world. So I also like that idea of the fact that we're not just planning things here in South Bend, but we are also communicating to the people on the ground, and we're in an academic setting, and we are keeping up with research and making an impact. So I thought that was a great opportunity. I think particularly for a person like myself, I think it's very much important, because the work that the Pulte Institute is doing directly impacts my country or countries like mine, the developing world. So I think when we participate, as you say, participate in the work, we are indirectly, in a way, contributing to policies and initiatives that will change the trajectory for our countries. And there's also like generally a call for young people in the development agenda to participate in decision making and policy implementation and planning. And I think being in Notre Dame is very much an advantage because you get that opportunity to take part in an international organization that's implementing projects all over the world, and you actually have influence on what goes and what is done. Because when I was working for this project, I was actually in many ways making recommendations that were going on paper, that were going straight to the policymakers. So I think it's very important for young people to participate in global development. The future is ours. We are the ones who are going to be experiencing the long-term effects of the work that we're doing here, because the future is ours indeed. We're the ones who are going to be around for a while. So it's very much important to participate in global development because of that. Youth participation and also just contributing to development initiatives back home. I think that's very critical. Yeah. Yeah, I think I just wanted to express that I really appreciate the opportunity that I had to work with Pulte. And one thing that I even wrote on my profile was that when I started working on this project, because it was very much like a desk research focused kind of work, I didn't know that that's the kind of work that I actually enjoy doing. I came to Kyo School, I had professional experience before coming here, but I hadn't really had that option of what would work for me. So when I started working on this project, following the trends of what's going on around the world, the political developments, I actually became more and more interested in it. And I remember talking to Jenna and saying, I really want to mop up my writing skills. And they were very helpful with that. They would, focus on that. Whenever I would give them my deliverables, they would give me feedback, primarily focusing on my writing and how I can improve and how I can be better. And that shaped my choice for my internship, which I ended up doing at the United Nations. I was a political affairs officer, which was also very much research and desk research and political analysis. So it is really because of this position that I got to shape my to have an idea of what I want to do in the future and how I want to contribute to development. So I really appreciate that. I think that's one thing I had to say.